Hey guys, Brent Hull, Wednesday design video, talking today about this Colonial Revival house that we're fixing, a number of details, especially windows. So come check it out. Okay guys, this is part 2 explaining how to fix the Colonial Revival house. Last time I talked a little bit more about the dormers, but this time I want to talk more about the windows. And I want to show you the way this is put together so that you can understand kind of how to make your windows better and why windows are so important. This is actually a question one of you guys brought up in the YouTube comments is, hey, could you talk about window proportions? If you look at this house currently right now, I've got the bottom of the door, it's right here coming across. If I just draw a line across there, those windows are probably 6 inches, 8 inches above the finished floor, okay? That was never really an historic model of the way they do that. In fact, in the past, the windows were almost always at the chair rail height on the inside. And so if you consider that this is a 7-foot door going across here, there's tons of room in here over top of these windows. I can't imagine what's going on there, but we've got a lot of room between the top of the windows and the ceiling. And so there ends up being this big gap in here that I can't help that looks funny. I pointed out in the other video that these windows are the exact same size. Typically in these historic houses, you have what's called graduated fenestration, which would mean that I have a bigger window on the bottom and a smaller window on the top. It's just like with that historic furniture, you got the big drawers on the bottom, the smaller drawers on the top. There's a balance and a proportion that makes that look better. So if you just look at my side by side, look how I picked this window up, moved it up, what, about a foot, maybe a little bit more than a foot. I've also made it wider. So I don't know if you can see that there, but I've gone about 2 or 4 inches wider and lifted it up. Now, what I'm doing, there is a proportional relationship with your wall. Okay, so if this is the inside of that room, my window, the window sill, and if I do the classical order right here, there's my pedestal, there's my column that goes up, there's my architrave and frieze and cornice and entablature, right? So there's the classical system on the interior of my wall. My window sill height ought to be right at that pedestal height. Furthermore, I should be organizing this window so that it ends up somewhere at the top, somewhere around my architrave, because I'm going to have an architrave that's going to go around this window, and it maybe ties in with the architrave of the entire room, so that I'm beginning to unify and pull the room together with these proportioning systems that are going to make this house look better. So I've got a bigger window on the bottom, smaller window on the top, little things like I got a paneled shutters on below, louvered shutters above. That would have been the idea, that you'd have had security below, but in the bedrooms up above, you'd allowed air movement to come through there. And look what I did to an entablature as well. You know, if I drew this entablature over, basically they have a little iron railing, which is really even hard to see, it's so small. But basically they have a one step, which is your architrave and your frieze, and then the little bed mold, and then your fascia there for your entablature. And look how small those columns are. I would say that that column, you know, if this is a 7-foot door, that's almost a 9 foot, maybe 9.5 foot column, and it looks like it's about 8 inches, right? One little quick rule that you can use on columns is that for every foot of column, you got about 1 inch at the base. So what that means is if I have an 8-foot column, the diameter of the base of my column is 8 inches. Sometimes I go 1 inch over that, maybe 9 inches, to give them a little bit of strength. If this is a 9-foot column, that's probably a 6 or 7 inch column at the bottom. So they look weak, okay? Notice too that when I fix this entablature, I'm adding that step. So I'm adding an architrave, there's my frieze, and so I'm not changing it too much, but I am increasing the size of that entablature. If you can kind of see how much stronger it is, I'm also bringing it in. It was really wide, and so you know, you can see that I brought it in maybe a foot on either side. My columns are much bigger, and so it gives it more strength. And look what I did above. I've got a pedestal above this column, I've got a pedestal above this column, and I've highlighted that entrance piece so that this really highlights the center of this house, and this really kind of makes this house kind of charming and stand up. So there is, again, as I'm organizing and putting these windows together, and as I'm digging into this thing, I'm not doing a lot. I'm not changing a ton. I've increased the size of that entablature by about 6 inches, so it's gone from thin to really bigger. I've increased the size of those columns from, let's say they're 7 inches to about 9 or 10 inches at the base. And then I've got this, a better wood railing above is much stronger than this weak iron railing. And that iron railing is way too tall for this. I mean, one, no one can go out there. There is no code for you. You have to have it at 3 feet. Instead, it looks like a cage on top of this house. It looks silly up there. And so, you know, by shrinking this down, by strengthening that, I give this whole composition, right, the whole composition of the columns and the entry and everything else, a much better presence and a much stronger, better appeal. The window here that's just kind of this silly window that's kind of a half-hearted attempt at a Palladian window. I just said, no, just let's not even mess with that. Let's do an arch window. Because we've got shutters, if I do arch shutters, it's going to be very dramatic around this window. And again, what you're trying to do in a traditional house is create balance and create symmetry, and the entry is very important. So we're going to try to emphasize that and kind of build that up. Good windows in this house, shutters with the shutter dogs, right, that hold those shutters open, louvered versus paneled shutters. All these subtle little things, guys, that if we just manage a few of them properly, right? If we organize where that window goes in the wall, I've done the same thing upstairs, because if you figure that your joist is right there, these windows too are really low down. So I'm pushing them up, and notice that I've increased the size of this entablature at the tops because I've got a full entablature there. I'm adding another 6 inches here, and now my windows are going to come right to the bottom of that cornice at the top that's wrapped in this house. It's going to unify, pull it all together. Using traditional details really does make a big difference. These details really improve this house. I'm Brent Hull. Thanks for watching.